Biden blames Trump administration for not having enough vaccines ready. This is sickening. He should be thanking the Trump administration for the development of 2 vaccines and for having vaccines ready. And remember, 3 weeks ago, they said, we're missing 20 million vaccines. What happened to that? Oh, we found them. Oh, we're not producing enough vaccines. Oh, well, now we are. It was always going to have that kind of a trajectory. Anyway, let's go ahead and listen to what he has to say. Go.
When we came into office, there was only 50 million doses that are available. We have now, by the end of July, we'll have over 600 million doses, enough to vaccinate every single American. Just over 4 weeks ago, America had no real plan to vaccinate most of the country.
This is such a lie. It is so outrageous. And for the media to sit there and not say, well, what was that plan and what is your plan and how do they differ? Is just so appalling. Go ahead.
My predecessor, as my mother would say, God love him, failed to order enough vaccines.
They didn't fail to order enough vaccines. The plants that produce the vaccines can only produce so many. You're not producing widgets. You're not producing nails. You're not producing paper clips. You're producing a vaccine. It requires a certain kind of environment. It requires certain kind of storage requirements. It requires certain types of elements. And so it takes time to gear up. And what is amazing about this is people are being vaccinated before a year was completed when we were hit by the Chinese virus. Oh, they failed to have a plan. Oh, they failed to order enough vaccines. They had a plan. As the former head of Warp Speed said, they're using our plan. Maybe they're tweaking it here and there, but that's our plan. And of course, in terms of ordering vaccines, we've ordered the vaccines. They're being produced as quickly as they can be produced. Go ahead.
Mobilize the effort to administer the shots. Failed to set up vaccine centers. That changed the moment we took office. I directed Jeff
Vaccine
Sines.
centers. How many of you have been to vaccine centers as opposed to be CVS or Walgreens or depending on your grocery stores, Publix in the South and so forth and so on? Most of you don't go to vaccine centers. What the Trump administration did, what was actually brilliant, is they not only gave the authority to the states, but they encouraged the states, and the good states with serious governors, what they did is they used existing facilities, like where you get your pharmacies, drug companies, like where you get your groceries, grocery stores like Walmart, and places like that where people go. You don't have to set up federal facilities in order to give vaccinations. And most people are not going to federal facilities that he set up to get vaccinations anyway. Go ahead.
COVID-19 response coordinator to lead my administration's work with the vaccine manufacturers to buy more vaccines and to speed up delivery. Albert referenced it earlier, and I want to thank him for making it happen. Because we worked together, we're now on track to have enough vaccine supply for all Americans.
Ladies and gentlemen, we were always going to have enough vaccine supplies for all Americans. This guy started out as a plagiarist, and he's going to end as a plagiarist. The lies are just unbelievable. Now let's take a look at this chart. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, up on the screen here, U.S. cumulative COVID vaccine doses administered. And what you're going to see is, from the beginning, starting in December on, you can see that President Trump's plan, the CDC's plan, is exactly the same, which is the upward trajectory of the provision of these vaccines, the giving of the vaccines, which means the production of the vaccines. Nothing has changed. The government was always going to buy more vaccines. The government was always going to produce more vaccines. The government was always going to give out more vaccines once the private sector that produces them could provide them. So this is not something new. Newsy, which is a great site, Newsy Report finds Biden administration following the playbook started under Trump. Newsy's not some right-wing organization. They're following the process that was set up under Trump. What is so outrageous is this administration taking credit for things it has not done. They don't even hold a weekly press conference on this. You just have a couple statements here and there that look what we've done. We've told them to speed it up, so they're speeding up. But there's no real reporting on this, except for a few sites like Newsy, that what they're doing is absolutely lying through their teeth. what was done was absolutely remarkable by the prior administration. So you can see what's happening here. Joe Biden will be taking a bow sometime this summer for all his great work and the effort of his administration, having to fill all these gaps that didn't exist. Think about this. It's February 2021. In February 2020, we were slammed by this virus. It just started. Congress was completing, or had just completed, its first round of phony impeachment proceedings against the President of the United States. We didn't even have a test for this virus. Mr. Fauci, the infectious disease czar, had nothing. The CDC had nothing but a defective test. There was no testing. So the Trump administration, at the head of which Donald Trump, they had to come up with tests. Then they had to come up with tests that were efficient. They could be done quickly. Then they had to come up with enough of them to get them out and about so people could be tested. They really had to start from scratch, from absolutely nothing. And the president, Donald Trump, he had to work with these other companies in order to develop them. And you can remember all these, the lack of PPEs, the lack of masks, the lack of ventilators, the lack of all these things. All of this had to be produced. All of this had to be done. Now they're plentiful, but they weren't back then. There was great concern about ICU and beds, hospital beds. And the administration, the Trump administration, worked like hell to make sure there were enough hospital beds where they were needed and got them there and used the United States military, the Coast Guard, the Army Corps of Engineers. Whatever they could do, they did it. They filled the gaps where the virus was particularly harsh. And they had already begun the process of developing vaccines, of putting the capital in with the private sector to develop the vaccines because they didn't have the capital, to take up the risk for the private sector. Under President Trump, they were already developing means for production, means for distribution. And the first one right out of the box, the Pfizer one, required enormously low temperatures. I think it was 70 degrees or so below zero to store them. Now, that's not just to store them, that's to transport them from every part, from production to every part of the country. All these things had to be done that were not done. And they were done in record time. And the President of the United States, Donald Trump, was saying, starting in August and September, and I interviewed him on Fox, he said, we have these vaccines, they're coming online, they'll be online very soon, probably around Halloween, give or take. Everyone attacked him, including Biden and Kamala Harris. And then what happens? Within days of the election, after the election, Pfizer announces it has its vaccine. Within days of that, the next company announced that it has its vaccine. It's too bad they didn't make those announcements because they knew damn well prior to the election where credit could be given where it's due.
Want to see more? Sign up for Levin TV.